It might be a short clip, but there is a lot to unpack here.
You're not concerned then with your own voice on those recordings?
My voice was fine. What did I say wrong on those recordings? I didn't even see the recording. All I know is I did nothing wrong. We had a lot of papers stacked up. In fact, you could hear the rustle of the paper, and nobody said I did anything wrong, other than the fake news, which of course is Fox, too.
Trump says, my voice was fine. Initially, he can't quite get his head round whether the question is about the quality of his voice or the words that he actually said, because this is how dumb this guy is. So he's, everything is very binary with him. My voice was fine, he says.
My voice was fine. What did I say wrong on those recordings?
What did I say wrong on those recordings? Well, firstly, he's admitting that it's him. So, the argument that he could have done is that that's not my voice, or it's AI, or that's a deep fake. No, he doesn't have the capacity to kind of even go there. He's like, what did I say wrong on those recordings? So he's basically admitting that it's him, but he is also then putting himself at the scene of the crime.
I didn't even see the recording.
And then a double negative. Then he lies and says, I didn't even see the recording. Well, I can never see a recording, and nor can you. Recordings are not something we look at with our eyes. Recordings are something we listen to with our ears. And if Donald Trump, at the age of 77, hasn't yet worked out that looking and listening are two different senses, and that audio recordings are best done with your ears, then we are in big trouble, because that guy was the president for 4 years.
I didn't even see the recording. All I know is I did nothing wrong.
He keeps going back to this defense, I did nothing wrong. And it reminds me of the time that he tried to extort Vladimir Zelensky on the telephone with, the security services listening, where he then said it was a perfect phone call. I mean, a line of English that has never been used before, a perfect phone call. I don't know what a perfect phone call is, and I'm sure you don't either. But for some reason, in Trump's head, a phone call can be perfect. And his whole defense for that, which he was impeached for, was that the phone call was perfect. And it's the same in this situation as well. He seems to think that he did nothing wrong. And by repeating that he did nothing wrong time and time again, and his lawyers use the same language, oh, he did nothing wrong, he did nothing wrong.
We know the facts and he did nothing wrong.
The law is not about what you might think is right and wrong. The law is about what is legal and illegal and what the evidence proves, not just what you say.
We had a lot of papers stacked up. In fact, you could hear the rustle of the paper.
We had a lot of papers. You could hear the rustle of the paper. Well, hang on a second. Former Mr. President, you just said a moment ago that you'd never seen the tapes, which we have translated into meaning you never heard the tapes. So if you never heard the tape, how do you know that on the tape you can hear rustling on the tape? You see, yet again, this doesn't just prove that Trump is a moron, but it proves that he is a natural-born liar. That's what he does. Deny, deny, deny. I wasn't there. It was nothing to do with me. That's not even me in the thing. I didn't even show up. I was somewhere else. Well, I was there and I was rustling, but they were just rustling. That's what you could hear was just rustling. I'd love him to defend himself in court. I mean, he might end up having to, because not a solitary lawyer on the planet is going to want to defend this guy.
In fact, you could hear the rustle of the paper, and nobody said I did anything wrong.
And nobody said I did anything wrong. Well, who's he referring to? Because it seems like he does all his market research based on watching right-wing media, whether it be Newsmax or One America Network or Fox. This is his positioning to find out where he's at and how things are going, because he knows that if he has the support of Fox, then there's a good chance that he's going to win the support of Republican voters. So by saying nobody said I did anything wrong, that means nobody means Newsmax. Nobody means the One America Network and other various far-right Christian nationalist news networks that have a huge Republican bias. And because Fox deemed to ask him some tough questions in that interview a couple of weeks ago, he now thinks that Fox is the enemy. And because Fox is saying that he did something wrong, that means that, maybe they're not on side.
And nobody said I did anything wrong, other than the fake news, which of course is Fox too.
It's irrelevant to him, it seems, that the Justice Department says he did something wrong, or that Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, said that he did something wrong. He's so used to going to court and fighting and paying people off and slandering people that in this case, it's almost like the rules of the nation that govern you and I are irrelevant to him. He only cares about the television. He only watches the news networks. This is all this guy does. Sits at home, eats cheeseburgers, watches the news. And you know something? It was exactly the same when he was the president. Sat in the presidential dining room adjacent to the Oval Office and just watched TV, including on January 6th. And isn't this the point? That we are dealing with somebody who is not normal. He is abnormal. He has an abnormal brain. He is unwell. He is mentally compromised. And that he is somebody that is going to bring down the United States at whatever cost. To him, the death of the country needs to come before the death of Donald Trump, the brand. And that's what's more worrying than anything here. He will say anything and he will stop at nothing. And to think for a moment that any of this evidence seems to bother him is not the case. He's one of these guys who squints and thinks it'll go away, like coronavirus. Nope, if we don't test, then we won't get as many cases, and then it's gone. That is the logic that goes through this moron's mind. And how on God's earth he ever was elected president and ran the United States for 4 years is beggars belief. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5-Minute News podcast, on Wednesdays on MAGA Uncovered with Ron Filipkowski, and on Sundays hosting The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.